1, 2, there we are. Hello, 1, 2, sound check, check. Welcome everybody to our conversation. Thank you so much for coming to spend this time with us. We will be speaking about sustainable artist development. As you can see, I decided to put the description on a giant slide for all of you to be able to see it, because I think it really sums up the challenges that we will be talking about very well. So this is something food for thought for you for the beginning. Also, we talked about it before the panel, and I also thought quite a bit about this, that the sustainable artist development part consists of two very important aspects, and one is the sustainability in terms of ecology, and the other one is the artist development as such, and it's the combination that is interesting. And to me, you know, I'm an artist, so of course artist development is very close to my heart, and I think we will be stressing both of these things equally, if not even in the advantage of artist development. So this is not like a, you know, straightforward sustainability panel, just a disclaimer for everybody who's in the room. But also, please don't leave. I'm sure you'll have interesting things to hear in our conversation. My name is Misha Furtak. I'm an artist, and I run the Polish chapter of Music Declares Emergency. I'm also a part of Key Change, so I have a bit of an activistic side to my professional life. And I'm also an educator. Maybe some of you caught a bit of my concert last night, which I hope you did. And I have 4 wonderful speakers with me today, and we'll do a short round of introduction. If you could introduce yourself and maybe say a couple sentences about yourself. Maybe we'll start with Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna Hoffmans.
Take mine in. Yeah. Ah, yeah, it's coming, it's coming. It will take a few seconds.
Okay, so my name is Anna Hoffmans. I've been working in the music industry since 1994. I work out of Berlin, Germany, and I've been exclusively working for independent labels, British indie labels. The first one I was working for 19 years was Mute, the label of Nick Cave, of course, and Goldfrapp and Depeche Mode and Moby, seeing through careers from start to finish, or from the start to even further. And then since 2010, I also took on Domino Recordings, which is the label of Arctic Monkeys and Franz Ferdinand and Villagers and Anna Calvi. So I've exclusively been working in an indie context with the owner-run independent music labels, and I run their business in Germany and Austria, by the way.
Hi everyone, my name is Nela. I come from Macedonia. I work for a company called Passport Production, and for the past 25 years we've been festival organizers, promoters, concert organizers, and also artist managers. We have a couple of artists in our roster, mostly Balkan, but we work all around Europe with them. We have 3 of the biggest festivals in Macedonia, so I've worked with a lot of artists, international and also domestic from Macedonian, and working with young, new, upcoming Macedonian artists. I saw, especially about the topic that we're going to discuss, the development part and educational part, and I saw almost everything at our scene, Macedonian, what is good, what needs to be done, and what they lack of. So currently my next project that is already in the making is starting and running the first Macedonian export office. So that's my future goal, my future project. I'm working on that. So that's pretty much it from my side.
My name is Charlie Bader. I work with some friends and partners at Medienmanufaktur Wien. I do that for 20 years now. In the beginning it was more like a hobby, but it works out fine. In the meantime, I work with some only Austrian artists, most of them German-speaking, like Ernst Molden, Danino aus Wien, or Anna Mabo, or Sarah Bernhardt. Yeah, and we work with Edna Million, who plays at Waves tonight. So that's it for the moment.
Hi, I'm Ben Heimann. I'm from Hamburg. I work for the Orchard as a label manager for 10 years now, and I work with labels like Grand Hotel Van Cleef, Euphorie, Neubau, or V2 from the Netherlands.
Thank you so much. Just also a general note for all of you. We will have a question, like we'll be opening the room question sessions for the end of the conversation. But if at any point of the conversation you have something to say, a comment, a question, please say so, because we would like to accommodate the room as well. Like whatever you need from us, we would like to be able to help you. So just please raise your hand, and we'll find a way to pass the microphone to you. If we could just hear if how many of you are artists? Okay, probably the majority. How many of you are music business? Okay, more artists, yeah. Okay, if we can, I'll be like giving signs for for changing the slide. You had a lot of time to look at the description. I think it was very well phrased, and the question about how to shift the business model into the direction of a healthy growth is the starting point for this conversation. So I would like to, in the beginning of the conversation, hear from all of you how you define a healthy growth and how it has worked in your careers. If you have an example of that, or whether in your work and in your experience you think that they were things that are missing and you have some answers or some tips for us to follow. Maybe we can start with Anna again.
Start with the one who's not doing A&R. So I'm not doing A&R, but I work for I have been working for labels that had a very strong A&R vision, and in both labels that I've been involved with, I could see that the vision was always in the artist, and then finding an artist that the guys running the label really were interested in, and then making sure that we as a label and record company are finding a suitable market for, or preparing a market for them. Whereas I see a lot lately that A&R works the other way. You know, you discover a market and then find a suitable artist to cater for it, which I find less sustainable. And in my experience, this is not how you really develop artist career for a mid or long-term level. And so I would always propose that a label and record companies should strive, or managements in collaboration with the promoters and the marketeers and everyone and the distributors, work on a gradual but steady development of artists, and trying to expand the radius of the artists and the reach in their fan structure and in their listenership.
How does that work if you look at, Excel and a financial director being involved in the conversation? I mean, like, if they have the money argument, like, you would like to go the healthy long route, and then they say no, but like, we have to make money sooner.
You have to be able to afford it, I'm afraid. And you have to get a little bit lucky as well. but maybe other people can comment on this much better.
Well, in my opinion, there is no like one general rule, of course, for healthy growth or development. So basically, every artist needs to have set up their goals. Where do they want to be? Do they want to be successful or develop like in your own country, or do you want to have a international career and everything? So first of all, you need to have your goals clear, and you need to work on that goals step by step. You know, you cannot go big internationally if you're not known in your, first of all, your own neighborhood. Mm-hmm. If nobody knows in your building that you're an artist, you cannot go to, let's say, another country and then sold out show. So of course, need to clear out steps and goals which you want to achieve, and then work slowly, gradually achieving the steps. So, and for me, that's like a healthy growth when you take all things into consideration, get to know everything. That, for example, you mentioned financial plans and gains. So you, of course, need to give something to receive something. It's not just financially. So you need to be ready before you start earning money. You know, you cannot have like, let's say I have one song and then I'm an artist and then I want to play festivals or clubs or have money. Mm-hmm. You have 5 minutes of material to go on stage. So the healthy growth for me is like taking all these things into consideration, being prepared and working on that.
Mm-hmm. Strategy. Okay, thank you.
Most important is endurance, der lange Atem in Austria. You must take time, think it over, what is the strength of an artist, who are your partners. My most important story is my cooperation with Ernst Molden. 20 years ago we started at stages with 2 persons on the stage and 2 persons in the audience, and now we have sold out Elbphilharmonie. Endurance. That's most important. To find your partners, who are your partners. I would say most important. In Austria it's easy because in Austria there is no music industry anymore. I don't know whether there was ever music industry. The partners most important are the promoters, the organizers of events, the locations. Those are the partners with whom we have to cooperate, with whom we have to communicate. That's for the beginning. I think there will be more later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really difficult to add something here as a distributor, but I think we already had it. The long-term vision is definitely more important than short-term gains. Like, you have your viral TikTok moment, but what's after that? So
So long-term strategy and endurance, like that's a summary of this.
And I think what you both said, like having a vision for the artist, because what you said is completely right. You know, first you have to clear up your own backyard and be known in your own community, in your own town, in your own country, before you can start exploring other territories, you know. And this is very interesting. It's very interesting working out of Germany with international repertoire, because, I mean, every country is so different. You know, we've had artists. Nick Cave is a really good example. For the longest time, he was much more popular in Austria than he was in Germany in comparison to the size of the market, you know, because there was something in the Austrian psyche that he reflected in his music, and it was ridiculous, you know. We were always trying in Germany, like, we have to be better with him, you know. But that's when you know this, of course, you have to suggest to the promoter, or maybe you can also tour him in 3 different cities in Austria rather than just in Vienna. You know, so you have to go with the flow and have to go where the artist actually makes an impact, you know. And this is another way of like reaching sustainability, because sometimes it's not the most direct way from A to B where you reach your goal, but sometimes you have to just take a little detour via a minor country or minor market before you can actually reach into a bigger market.
Yeah, that's a great one. Can we get the next slide? So I thought of a couple points that we can use as a conversation starter for the artist development. This point is fostering authenticity, and it says we can support musicians in uncovering their voice, enhance the importance of the creative act and the process, as opposed to only looking at the results, which is now very relevant because of AI. Authenticity will resonate with the audience, so that creates the connection, and we can provide a safe space to experiment and explore. And the questions that I have around this is, how would you go about that, and what else can be done?
Well, it's definitely important if you really have something authentic. So it's not just forcing the authenticity. So let's say, I mean, Billie Eilish has an authentic voice, but I don't have her voice. I cannot be authentic like Billie Eilish. So I need to find in myself what really is authentic about me and what is really making me recognizable. For example, if you play a song on the radio, if it's really authentic, you can know who the artist is without even reading the name. So it's that, like, making really understanding what makes you authentic and not just forcing it, you know, just forcing authenticity. That doesn't make you recognizable or give you more points with the audience. So for me, that's like really find your way. And if you don't have something like authentic, you're just pure pop band, it's okay. Go with your style.
I also find that there's no formula, because lately all the marketing plans or everyone in the music industry is talking about the big impact of TikTok, you know, but then also other social media platforms, and like a lot of the artists we've been working with, they are just not natural to social media, and they would never even dream of going onto TikTok, you know, so just don't even try, because, I mean, especially with TikTok, you know, this is such a sensitive algorithm that kids would know immediately that there's some artist who was just put there by their record company or label or management, you know, to be doing something. And I have a good example, Arctic Monkeys, they have had this gigantic TikTok moment in 2020 and 2021, and we only bloody licensed the catalog of them to TikTok at the end of 21, you know, it was just purely user-generated content, because the band would rather cut off their hand before they did the TikTok. And I think this is also super sustainable, you know. I mean, we just let it happen, and we didn't object to it at all, but we didn't foster it, and it came from out there, you know, from people, and this is more sustainable, because now all those kids, like now the first 25 rows in the Arctic Monkeys concert are like really very young girls, you know, which we would never have reached. You know, that's another good example of how to go about it sustainably, you know.
Yeah.
I must remind of an important line in the song of Fünf Achtel in Ehren, an Austrian band. It's called "Schimpf mich nicht authentisch." Don't accuse me of being authentic. But it is important. I don't want to make too much jokes about it. It's the personality of the artist. It's the song. It's the quality of the bands, and we have to focus on it, and yeah, and we have to go on with that and communicate with the artist, with the partners, with the audience, and stay with them, and so it will make out fine. So,
and sometimes
that's
also not rush things, because I've had a really good example of a band that we recently signed 4 years ago. It's two girls called Wet Leg, and they have a great band, and they've become this immediate success with their first album. And then it was just going from, like, we dropped the first single, and then people were jumping on, and they were being played at radio, and then they had all sorts of other musicians saying, like, oh, have you heard of Wet Leg? So actually, promo money can't buy. So it was going on and on and on, and continued until we finally released the album, and then the music was out, and then I got this just a couple of months afterwards. We had this big meeting with management because the band had been offered on their second song. They have been offered this major global campaign by the lingerie company Victoria's Secret for a global brand change or brand campaign, and there was so much money on the table, and it was a really hard decision for management because they are earning when the band is earning. And so they were basically kindly asking everyone at the label, you know, and I was a complete no, because I said, like, hey, this is the first album of a band. You know, if they would sell this song to Victoria's Secret, they will forever be the band of Victoria's Secret. And when they do their second album, you know, it will still be the band of Victoria's Secret, and on the third and fourth and fifth, you know. I mean, there were a few bad examples of this happening, especially in the 90s that I can remember, where like the telecommunication companies were just really hijacking young artists' careers. And this is the exact opposite of sustainability in my frame of mind, you know.
Yeah, big time agreed. Would you like to add anything still? From maybe from the digital angle.
I had to think of the German band Pisse, as we talked about TikTok. They had no social media account, not on Instagram, not on TikTok, but they went viral. They had one hit, and now they tour the US because of a viral TikTok moment.
Yeah. There's one aspect of it also that I have been thinking about that I would like to hear your opinion on, because we represent different markets, and you also, Nella, mentioned in the beginning that, you know, you have to be first recognizable in your own market. What is your angle on language? Because if you're talking authentic, and some artists want to sing in English, but it's not going to work in their market, and then for the international career, they have to change the language. What's your take on that, and what has been your experience in regards of that?
Well, I'm, as I mentioned, coming from Macedonia, so we pretty much have a language that's understandable only in Balkan region and Slavic countries. So, but it's still not a small market, and I also started in this industry with working with an artist that is Macedonian, but he was only singing in English. Why? Because that was where he found himself comfortable, and where he can express himself, and where he can write his own songs and sing his own songs. So I really don't have just a concrete opinion on this, because it, again, depends on the artist. Nowadays, I think everything is more open to. I have seen Macedonian artists performing internationally at Eurosonic or bigger festivals, singing in Macedonian, and the crowd, the people are curious about finding new, getting to know new markets, new languages, new cultures, and it's not like music is the universal language, of course, but when it comes to the lyrics, my opinion is that you should go on with whatever makes you feeling that you can express in that you can express your best with. So if you're an artist that wants to express yourself in English, that's okay. If you're an artist that wants to sing in your own home language, that's okay. I mean, there are German artists that are listened to in Macedonia, so I even know a couple of words in German because of the artists. Of course, I mean, Spanish and Italian artists, I kind of know the songs in my word by word. So I don't think there is like any borders to that.
I'm asking because I have encountered it myself, and I know basically that there are markets which, if you sing in your local language, you can make it, and if you will sing in English, it's not going to work. So it's an artistic decision on one hand, but it's almost being unreasonable going for English if you're based at a territory that doesn't support that type of thing. And then on one hand, you want to, as a team, foster the authenticity and let them be whoever they want to be, but also you realize it's almost like taking, a lot of minimizing the chances of them actually getting somewhere. So I wonder what your experience with that is, or your opinion.
Yeah, well, the first artist that I started working with that I mentioned, he sings in English. He's singer-songwriter. He also performs with playing guitar, and he sounds amazing in my opinion. But a lot of people don't want to, the radio stations in Macedonia don't want to play him that much, or a lot of promoters don't want to book him that much, just because, I have already have that that sound, that style. So if you go to a label and compare yourself to I'm the next Ed Sheeran or I'm the next Damien Rice, which a lot of people compare him to, they just don't see the authenticity in that. So I have one Damien Rice, I don't need the next one. So give me something that is authentic. But still, if you express yourself and you best in that way, I don't see why you would force anything else that it's not you.
In this day and age of streaming, there's an interesting development which has been seen globally. It's called localization.
Yeah.
Although streaming is in theory global, in the end, when it comes to the most played tracks in any given territory, it turns out to be local language, local repertoire tracks. So people seem to be liking music in their own language. And I had another thought, because I was just thinking about markets like France who are trying to regulate the use of language by having a quota on radio and on media. And interestingly enough, if you looked at the closing ceremony of the Olympics, the two biggest bands that they have ever produced with an international appeal, Phoenix and Daft Punk, are singing in English. So it's up to you to decide, is it a really good idea to regulate the use of language, or is it really something that you should decide on from an artistic point of view? And like you said, what you feel comfortable with performing and expressing yourself in.
Yeah, I love that example, and Poland also has a quota, and it's a quota for Polish artists performing in Polish. It's not that you get played if you sing in Polish. So it's, I don't like that, but the point you made says it all. Would you want to add anything in regards to the language? It's not an obligation, so just, yeah, it's a yes or no. Okay, can we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah. So the next point is education. Navigating the industry, so copyright issues, contracts, understanding the key players, digital, social media, etc., equipping musicians with the knowledge to make informed decisions. Again, how would you go about that, or how have you gone about that in your experience, or what else could be done, or whether you think it's necessary in the first place?
of course, when you're starting I'm speaking here as an artist. When you're a new artist, when you're just starting with music and performing and everything, you don't know everything, of course. So, but you have to be educated on some things. As I mentioned, I work a lot with new Macedonian artists that we book for our festivals, and they come so unready. For example, when I send a contract and everything, they have come to my office to explain the contract to them because half of the terms they don't understand. And if you don't want to have if you don't want to sit and learn about the contracts and everything and your rights, then you can pay somebody if you want to that understands that. But if you don't want to pay anybody, you have to be ready. It's not acceptable that you're an artist for, let's say, 2-3 years and you'd have no idea what a royalty collective society is. That's not acceptable. That means you're not ready to enter the business and to enter the industry. I'm not an artist, and I get that it's very difficult and you need to have a lot of preparations with your playing and your sound and your performance. But if I worked from 9 to 5, let's say, even though we all know it's more, if I work 9 to 5, then you have to work 9 to 5 too. So if you're an artist, it's not just like 2-hour rehearsal. You have to work 9 to 5 too in upgrading yourself and educating yourself and gaining knowledge. So, because
have you ever sent an artist to like a course, like, oh, you don't know about social media, or you need to educate yourself about copyright and go to this copyright society and they will educate you? Or how do you go about approaching the artists in this regard?
Well, we are limited in my country on that, but that's my goal is for the export office, not just to give money for them to go abroad, but also to educate them. But yeah, I mean, I've sent them to social media courses, to talk to other booking agents or promoters, or just how to improve, let's say, whatever you need to know. Is it stage presence? Is it like legal stuff? Is it for collective societies, for labels? And to conclude, education is very, very important.
And there's very little in Germany. It's very underdeveloped. People have no idea. I can tell because I'm teaching a lot outside of my work. And it's really interesting because I had the feeling I'm sitting in a lot of different juries, and so I get lots of applications of young musicians, and there's an increasing amount of applications, but there's a decreasing knowledge of the music industry and business, and the basic functions, like you said, not even like what is the collecting society and why do I have to be a member? You know, it's very interesting. I think it's sort of a lifestyle decision almost, you know, after 7 or 8 or whatever years of TikTok, I think it's become sort of a fashion to be wanting to be a musician. But you don't want to, as you said, you don't want to sit down and do the work, you know. It's like, you want to drive a car, you have to have a driver's license, yeah. It's just like that.
Also shows that only a few artists can everything everything on their own. So you need a strong team around you, whether it a management or a label that help you in these topics.
And in terms of you, for example, as the Orchard, you have like the artist tools around, like where you can navigate your digital life. Do you, in your experience, do people embrace it, or is it a challenge rather?
First a challenge, then it embraces the artist definitely.
Okay.
But you need your time to get an overview over everything. Definitely.
So I agree to every word you said. I just wanted to add that in Austria we have some structures who are getting better for education of artists, of agencies, and so on, like thanks to Musikfonds, thanks to Mika, Music Austria, and so on. So it's getting better in Austria all the time, and thanks to Wave too, to Waves Festival too. And it's all about cooperation and communication between agency and artists. So we work for them and we tell them what we do for them or with them and inform them, ask them, they ask us. It's communication and cooperation.
And what I also think, coming back to sustainability, what I always like, I mean, this is not my decision, but what I always like to suggest to artists that I work with, like, go find different partners. Don't be on one label and then have the publishing go to the same publisher, you know, and maybe do the in-house booking thing, you know, because it's much better when you have like 3 or 4 different partners in your career, so that they can also keep checks and balances on the other partners, you know, because that's what I find lately very often, especially in those new fast-lived streaming-focused contracts, you know, where everything is just in it with the maximum effect on a very short-sighted term, you know, and then they're trying to get all the rights to everything in perpetuity, you know. So you have to really educate artists a lot to just try to keep your rights as long as you can, and then split them up into different hands, you know, so that, as Charlie said, you know, you have to know your partners and you have to work with them in a cooperative way.
Yes, big time agreed. And this in particular, I learned the hard way, because I was in a situation where my manager decided to release my album as a label. And because of some mistakes that he made on the way, I had to then take the consequences, and it was really put me in legal trouble for a bunch of years. So really, that I would like to underline that the teams are, the distribution of the separation of the teams is something that I, in my experience, have learned that it's really, really important. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, and this one is very important to me also, resilience and personal growth. It's about the mental health aspect and the emotional resilience and tools like mentorship or coaching. What is your experience with that? And, you know, maybe what else can be done? Have you, you know, send an artist to a mentoring program or, yeah. It's a big topic, I know, and it's a bit tough.
Maybe I can talk from history, because I'm so old, and so I have such a long experience. And we used to, in the 90s, that was a big thing, because with the growing visibility of artists, with music television coming up, artists were really unprepared for facing the media, and this is only accelerated. So we used to send like lots and lots of artists to media trainings, because they basically had none, and there wasn't even strategies for it. But this is now it has completely changed, and every artist has to know how to work with the media and with social media in particular and present themselves. And I think this should also be, I honestly, I have to say something unpopular now, but I honestly don't think that it's up to us people in the labels or record companies or whatever structures we are all working in to be sending artists to take care of their mental health or present themselves in the media. This is really something that they would have to think about when they start in this business, you know, and start to put their head out there as a career in music, you know, because that is a given. It's sucking you in. You have to spend the rest of your life posting on Instagram and whatever, you know, and if you don't want this, then become a plumber or whatever, or a teacher, or train to be a nurse, you know, that it's not, you don't have to make music if you don't want to be in the public eye, you know. Sorry. But that's my opinion after all those years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, First of all, to have all these things and as previously mentioned, you need to have partners and trust your partners if you don't want to be a one-man show and do everything.
Which is unsustainable.
And burns you out.
That's
Yeah.
why,
Yeah, but again, you have to have some input in that. It's not me. If let's say I'm your social media manager, let's say, it's not me that creates your picture. It's you how you wanna be presented to the world and to the audience and to everything. So you have to have some input. Again, it's the as you said, if you don't want to be in the public eye or don't want to make music, do something else, because how you want to present the project of making music and being a musician is something that is following you through whole life. So you need to take care of that. It's you can have as many partners as you want, but it takes some time to have a connection and trust and everything to them. So you need to have your input is a crucial one.
All of these points are very important, but it's rather somehow private. And yeah, sometimes it's just good to have friends, and sometimes some of my artists are friends of mine, and I just have to remember that they have to take care of themselves, and we have to take care of each other, and regard all those points. It's right.
Yeah, it's of course it is like that, but in the industry I noticed that like it's easy. The industry likes to put the responsibility for being mentally well on the artist, while it's a structure and everything. You know, if you pull one string, it has certain consequences. So it's still about the turbo capitalistic approach from the first slide, that if we work in a certain way, it implies further consequences. So I'm basically asking about your experience with maybe going against that a little bit, or being a bit more open to that aspect.
I have a very good example for that, which is not an artist that I work with, but I don't know if any of you have noticed, but lately Chappell Roan, this American singer who's become super famous in a super short period of time, and she had a complete breakdown on social media when she noticed that all her fans on the social media in real life are like following her, finding out about her family, and so she was super outspoken about this, and it sounded really to me, as an observer, I just looked at it and I just thought like, oh my God, the poor girl, because it is so intrusive, and there is such a fine line to walk between having full control, like a Taylor Swift or Billie Eilish, with a gigantic team and lawyers and blah, 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 or just being happenstancing into a supercharged career like Chappell Roan out of the clear blue sky, and you become apparently unprepared, and you open up, and then you cannot catch it back. And that's when harm is done, and that's when I think when real trouble is starting, and when people get into psychotic stages or whatever. And that happens very often,
And unfortunately, we cannot change on the feedback that you get from the audience and your fans. And even though they have like the very best wishes for you and everything, sometimes it's overwhelming. And I haven't found a way to tell my artists how to prepare to that. For example, I had an artist, she went to Eurovision 2 years ago, probably. Yeah, she was so young, 21 years old. And she was not that much prepared for Eurovision. And there was a situation when the photographer wanted to take a picture. They had like really small flags, and photographer wanted to take a picture of her without the flag. So, you're in the middle of Eurovision carpet, and she threw the flag just with the best manners and everything. She threw the flag so she could take a picture as photographer wanted, and the flag ended up on the ground. And as you know, the flag, the country flag, cannot end up on the ground. She was terrorized on social media, and that, I think, like really, really impacted her and broke her really. So sometimes we don't have control over of what feedback you get or how to cope with that. So I don't know, that's a tricky point. Even though
I mean, I think it's a learning curve for all of us, because this topic, like you, as you mentioned, it's also a new topic in general for the industry. It hasn't been as popular and a topic for conversations, so we all learn how to go about it. But even the fact itself that it's on the table, it's coming up, is already a good thing. I'm not saying that we should have answers to all the questions. That's impossible. Do you at this point have any questions or comments? Yes, there is a hand. Do you have a microphone down there? Or should I give you mine?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oluchuku, and I make music. And I would say, personally, all the topics treated this afternoon are very relatable to me as an artist. From a beginner, I would say upcoming, I would call myself, and to social media, very, very relatable. And one that actually broke me down was when I posted something on Instagram and somebody said, "Stop being bitter, do better." Well, it hurt me, but it kind of made me to question myself. Maybe it's actually helping me, not to be bitter, but to do better. And that's why I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take every possible steps it takes for me to be better with my music. And being here today is part of it. And I think I really would say that from all I've heard from each one of you is gonna really make me, to do better in my music. I have two questions. One is, talking about authenticity, how do you actually define authenticity? Because I make music, I want to be authentic, so I use Igbo, I mix it with English in my lyrics. I use English, I speak German, I mix it. All this you can find in my songs. And that is me trying to be authentic. Sometimes when I write lyrics and I'm composing it, when I sing the chorus in German, it sounds better to me, sounds more fun than if I try to write it in English. And then when this song comes out, it's partly English, partly German. It cannot be played on the radio because, okay, so how do you actually define authenticity? That is my first question. And my second question is, hello, sir. You said something about quality music. What makes a music quality, The quality you're looking for? If I send you my catalog, my music as a label, what are you looking for? What do you want from me? What makes my song, my music, quality? I'm really interested to know what this is because I want to give my best to my song. Thank you.
Do you guys have any comments to that?
Well, first, the authenticity question and the language question. There's, of course, there's an artist, in fact, based in Germany, but he's of Congolese descent, I think. Congolese or Togolese. And he's working in Lingala, whatever that comes from, French and German, and it works really well. His name is AlbeX, and he even gets airplay, even in Germany. But talking about authenticity, being played on the radio, bear no relation to authenticity, I would say. You will find an audience, maybe not on the radio, but online, on the streaming services, on YouTube, wherever. If people think that what you're producing, in whatever language you're producing it, speaks to them, and therefore they feel it's authentic, and it's probably then authentic to you. That would be my answer to that question. The other question I cannot answer.
Adding to this, earlier Anna mentioned that sometimes, you know, a route to a bigger territory is via a smaller territory, and then in that same sense, your route to being recognizable is not the direct route between you sitting here and the radio, but it goes through the people that you touch, and through that it spreads out, and that's how people hear from you, and you end up on the radio. So it's these shortcuts that people have in their heads, I think, is something that detours us a little bit as artists. So I think from an artistic perspective, if you write thinking too much about where it ends up, it's not the right drive for, I mean, just speaking from my process experience.
My definition would be just artists are authentic, full stop. They are authentic as long as they do their thing, their music, as long as they don't try to be someone else, or to fulfill interests of other people or groups or whomever. And the question was to me about quality of music. I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. My definition is the quality that I believe in, the quality that I see. It's subjective, of course. It's the quality that I hear, that I experience. I don't have any other definition of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can we go to the next slide? So the next slide is sustainability, and this is something that also is a big topic in the recent years, and something that we have to look at. So the points are green touring, footprint of merch and printed media, hospitality riders, green accommodation, and also workshops on, for example, touring by train or green hospitality riders, etc., and also audience recommendations. What is your experience in this regard? Maybe this is more a question for those who have the booking experience. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
I agree to everything. It is important. It should be more important. We all should should regard it more than so far. So,
in your
full agreement.
What have you worked with? Like, what's the closest to you, or do you use for example, carbon footprint calculators, or how do you incorporate that into your work?
Yeah, we should do it better, of course. We try to go to concerts with train, and we know we have it on our to-do lists to make better hospitality riders, to take more care of green accommodation and of green touring. So it reminds me of things that we should
homework
do better
from today.
May I say something?
Yeah.
I'm a music agent in a very niche music, and it's just for me very hardly. If we say take the train, yes, but the train is so much more expensive for 5 people touring than the car is, for example. We had this last time in Germany, in Allgäu. No question, we can't afford to use the train then because it's too expensive. Except, of course, you have a Klima ticket in Austria, but that ends on the border post.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't feel so ashamed. There's an Adele having shows in Munich where everyone has to fly to.
It's
so
on the next slide, yes.
I think it's going to be that there's other scapegoats here to talk about.
Yeah. And from, I'm part of Music Declares Emergency as well, and the way we like to address what you said is that you should work with what is within your capacity and within your range. So if you're planning, for example, if you're putting a tour in Excel, you put the costs in there, and there's something that you can cut down on and something else that you just cannot cut down on. And in total, it should make sense financially as a budget. And if you look at that in an identical way, but you look at the carbon footprint calculator, there's something, for example, like your meat consumption on tour or other things that can really reduce the footprint that you can actually minimize, but then you will go for the car because for here and now, it's just the way that works for you. So it's not about, none of this is pointing fingers, you're driving, you're flying, and you're doing this or that. It's in total making the footprint smaller for whatever is available for you right now.
And it's also partly a question of the musician, him herself, because I mean, I can't tell the person usually meat. I have anyway both vegetarians in my thing, but still, that's not up to me as an agent or something.
Yeah, but it goes back to what I said. If this is not available, then maybe another area is available. It's just, as long as you have that as a criteria in your head when you're looking at booking things.
Yeah, and I have to mention that it's really making me happy that a lot of riders, hospitality riders that I receive, have like pointed out, please use reusable cups, please use reusable bottles and everything, because that's one way to make an impact.
Yeah. We'll just quickly go to the next slide, because that's the gig tripping versus world touring. I wanted to mention that, but Anna has already mentioned it. It's great that you did, because a lot of people, like according to Skyscanner, are really willing to go a long road for their artists. But it's often mentioned as like, yeah, we'll do it stationary and all the production is here, so it actually has a lesser impact, which is not really the case.
I also think it's, I mean, we have a weird scenario at Domino where Arctic monkeys are so popular. They're so much more popular in England and the States than in Germany, or have been for a very long time. So they would always play much tinier shows in Germany, and then all those Americans and English people would fly in, buying up all those tickets. So you cannot even, I mean, yes, you can try to control it, like Coldplay or whoever wants to have it on the green ideas on the agenda, but then you're always thrown at the mercy of the consumer, and are they willing to get on the plane and do a transatlantic flight to see their big star, you know, when they are not playing anywhere else like Adele does, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a tricky one, I think, and you cannot apply a rule. Again, here's no formula, I think, and everyone should, as you mentioned, just be conscious about it, that we all, and not only in our business lives, but also in our private lives, we should try to reduce our carbon footprints.
Yeah, whatever is within our capacity for here and now. Do you have any comments regarding the sustainability aspect still? Not really. Can we move to the next slide? So this is, I have two last questions. So this one is, how far are we from healthy and why? Just to summarize bits and pieces of what we talked about. And then the last slide is a question about trying to coin a bit more of a sustainable business model. So like, what would be one aspect of it in your opinion? Maybe we could do a round about that.
How are we unhealthy? I'm not entirely sure. On the sustainability of the business model, I just see it from my employer, and I mean, we are still pretty sustainable, but as I said very early on, we can afford it because we have a few big artists with a big catalog that we all control, and we can afford to try to kickstart careers of really small artists, sometimes with more and sometimes with less success, because Wet Leg was a good success, but we have many, many artists that you've never heard of and that weren't successful yet, you know, but we can afford to just keep trying, and we do. But I see, parallel to that, I see a development in general in the more major-oriented music industry, or in the clustering almost of the streaming services, you know, where labels are like, they go about their A&R with data analysis, you know, trying to find the most streaming acts with the least strings attached and then sign them. And I've heard this even more ridiculous thing that one label that I know of, I won't mention the name, they, like, for example, they signed this New Zealand band of indie guitar, very nice, unoffensive indie guitar music, and it's because it streams so well. And then they signed 3 or 4 other very similar sounding bands just for the sake to also upload it on streaming services, so that the algorithm will just like group them all together, and they each individually benefit of each other. Maybe you can comment on this. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Nice idea. I will keep that in mind, definitely.
Well, how far away are we from healthy growth? Again, depends on what do you expect and what do you want. My dear friends of mine from Macedonia, they have a band for 20 years. They have never played abroad, never ever, like one single show abroad, because that's their goal. Be successful in Macedonia. They sold out a show for 20th anniversary last year. They're planning one for 25th anniversary. So it just depends on you. But there are some situations that we cannot still affect, of course, as we mentioned. And it's good that we're working on that.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's possible to be not far from healthy. I think we do manage it in our agency and with our artists. It's possible.
I guess it's a fight for the next, for all of our futures. Once one problem is solved, another pops up. So I'm not that optimistic, actually.
Oh yeah? Why?
Nobody, 15 years ago, nobody thought that the ecological issue will pop up in that fast in that way, and who knows what happens in the next 10 years.
Well, I want for the very last round, very briefly, to you to mention like the one first step that you can take to work in a healthy way. What do you think is like the aspect that you find most important?
There's only one way, like make music, make music so that you are compensated by the streaming companies fairly, so that you can make a living of your streams. This is what the most important question will be. If we want to have a music business going forward, we have to talk about how much music is worth and how to compensate artists. And even more so now with KI making it or AI making it super easy to just generate music to put it up on streaming services without people noticing immediately, and then this skimming of revenues, you know, from real flesh human artists, you know. I think that's the crucial question.
Yeah, Nella?
Well, my opinion is, I would say, like, be ready, be sure what you bring to the table, what you want to achieve, and then let things happen naturally and organically, without forcing.
Without forcing, yeah.
The next step is to go on cooperating, go on with communication, talk to each other, talk with your artists, talk to your agencies. That's it.
have a strong network and diversify your income with merchandise, live, and you cannot live, or only a few artists can live on streams alone, so you have to do that.
Yeah. And from my artistic perspective, if I had to say one thing, is to focus on the process and not on the result, because it's very much, again, the opposition of the human flesh and the AI. And if you really focus on your work and dive into it, this is what gives you the strength to go forward and to really believe that you're behind what you're doing. We're out of time, so if there, I mean, we have to leave the room, right? There's no question. Yeah, from my, I can say for myself that if you have questions to me, you can come up to me after and I'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you to the panelists. If you need to contact me.